audience. This is Paul, and today we're here to do yet another interview with the amazing Kristen family. This time we've got Kristen's sister Jenna, who is
Hello.
an yes, glad that you could make it.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, this is by the way, audience, this is the first time we've met as well, so lots of spontaneity going on
Woohoo!
lately.
Yay!
She is an ENFP this time, and
Yep.
you might be thinking, that's only one letter difference, Paul. That doesn't mean anything. It changes everything because their bottom and top functions not only are intuition and sensing, as opposed to sensing and intuition, but the extroversion introversion is swapped. So now we've got extroverted intuition. But I also have that because ENFPs and ISTJs have the same functions but swapped.
hmm
So I
That's
was
right.
hoping we could start out a little bit different, which I figure extroverted intuition loves changing things up. I want to know how you handle introverted sensing because obviously that's what I run with. That means everything to me. So I want to know like what does it look like to be in the inferior slot?
Um, yeah, good question. I could probably answer this over just different periods of my life. So when I was, let's say, 15, no, let's say like age 12
All
to,
right, yeah, go
okay, let's say
deeper.
age 0. Well, when I kind of became conscious of this function, I guess not through the terminology of functions, but just being able to see it as some phenomenon in my life that had effects. Um, so probably from like age 12 to age 25, probably. Um, the way that I probably used SI was in like a stress kind of that annoying thing I'm like lugging around with me that's like nagging in the back of my mind.
Speaking of
um,
stress, a fire truck just passed by
oh
outside.
no,
So it's almost like they did the editing for me.
hope everything's okay. Yeah, that was very good timing for me talking about stress. Um, yeah, so up until I think probably maybe until the age I was 25, SI was like something I didn't really think about or value that much or really care about. So I guess before I had a husband and kids and responsibilities, I just didn't care. Like I didn't care to have an ordered environment around me. And I think for me now, that's the way that SI manifests most. So um, I have a terrible memory. I'm not great at remembering details and um, anything really. I'm not good at remembering anything.
Yet you
Um,
remembered this. Yet you remembered this meeting, so that
I
helps.
did, I did. Yeah, imagine if I didn't. um,
Yeah, that would be chaotic.
Hello, where are you? Is there a meeting on now? No, but so the gosh, train of thought interrupted, which means train of thought is gone, which is a classic me not
We could always
remembering
start a
something.
new one. We
Wait,
can
hang
always
on. No, no,
totally.
no. No, what I remember saying is that nowadays, the way that SI kind of appears in my life is through just like having systems of organization in the day to day. So um, I'm very detail oriented in how I plan my routines day to day. So we wake up in the morning, we do like the same thing every day in the mornings, which is like the breakfast sort of routine with the kids, and I like to stick to that because that's how like the kids expect things to go, and that's how I get then the most freedom to do the other things that I want to do.
So
So
thinking about others is like a driving force for you.
yeah, so
Then.
the thing is like for me to do those ordered things, it has to be I've found the way to kind of hack my SI is to go through my FI. So if I value something, I will do it. So for ages I didn't understand routine. I didn't see the need for it. I didn't like it just made no sense to me that you would live your life in any sort of structured kind of way, which probably sounds crazy to you. But
It sounds really weird, yeah.
yeah. So for a long time, I just didn't value it until I had people in my life that I cared about, or things that I wanted to do in my life, or time that I wanted to have to explore my NE or do projects or whatever. And then I was like, oh, okay, I value those things. So I should make a system around me that allows me to have some sort of structure and grounding that I can then know what times I have to freely explore the other stuff. And it gives me more time to explore like any things or do my projects or, you know, spend time with my kids in a certain way or my husband, without in the back of my mind having a nagging thing of, oh, you should be doing this thing that you were supposed to do. So now it's like, no, I've taken care of all those things. I have this system. It works well. It runs smoothly. It gets tweaked when I need to, but it's like a smoothly running system so that I can then function well in without feeling guilty.
This
Basically.
is this is really fascinating to hear what you have to say because I feel like I'm like looking at myself in a mirror almost. Because I can say the exact same thing with how I developed extroverted intuition
Yeah,
because I
tell me more
used
about
to,
that. Yeah.
yeah, I used to really hate going with the flow and being spontaneous. I would always have a freak out if my plans were changed and I would say, "Since when are people coming over? Don't scare me like that." But then through the extroverted thinking on my channel, it's a pattern for me to always put my hand in the position of where the functions should be to help newbies relate to it. So with the extroverted thinking, I thought, it might be better for my stress levels if I incorporate some form of free flow. So I guess you could say you did it through the introverted feeling. I'm doing it through the extroverted thinking. And
Mm,
then my dominant introverted sensing was happy because I'm like, now I can just have structured spontaneity. I can say, now is going to be the time where I'm going to just let myself be totally free and do whatever I want. And then an hour later, back to the structure.
that's so funny. I totally relate to that, which is so, yeah, so funny because it sounds very un-ENFP-ish because it is flipped. But I totally relate to that. My life now is a lot more about structured spontaneity. I have to factor in time and schedule ahead of time to have spontaneous kind of fun
Well,
in a certain way.
I
But I
guess
guess
being a
my brain,
parent,
yeah, it's definitely the parent thing. That's entirely it. It's like marriage and family, making that run smoothly is why I then have to structure. And when you get married and have kids, it's not about you. You're not thinking about you and what you want to do all the time. You factor in the other people and what runs smoothly and what works well for the whole family unit. And it would just be chaotic and ridiculous if you're only thinking about, hey, I want to do these things. So, you know, that sucks for you kids who can't implement routines by yourself. I'm just not going to do it for you, you know? So that would be kind of ridiculous if you think about it. So yeah, so it is the marriage and family thing that that has kind of forced me to do that. But it's good. It's a beneficial thing. It's helped me. It's helped me personally, individually as well, to feel more, uh, to feel more kind of in alignment with myself, if that makes any sense. To feel more grounded and tapped into
so in
that.
other words, if I'm understanding you correctly, you're saying that because of your kids and husband, that has helped you to contextualize why you're being structured as opposed to just being arbitrarily structured.
Yeah, yeah. It gives me, yeah, definitely, yes, absolutely. And then also, there's the element of like you don't know, like your fourth function can be causing you all this stress, right? And you don't know why necessarily if you're not kind of aware of it or able to name it or figure out why that's happening in your life. And then when you have an external circumstance or situation that kind of makes you realize how chaotic you are, in my case, um, then it's like, oh, okay, actually, it's good for me because this part of my personality does exist. This part of my personality that like loves a good like plan and like details and all this stuff. Yes. So yeah, that part of my personality definitely exists, and it's good to tap into that and to see that as having the benefits that it does have. And another way, because I'm a creative, like I do a lot of art and I do a lot of like kind of interior design stuff. And my SI gets used a lot there as well because it's very details focused, and organizing all the details together creates this like, so for example, if you're like designing a room, you're thinking about function, you're thinking about the vibe of it. So when I look at a space, like a blank space, and I want to design or lay out a room, I'm thinking, okay, what vibe? So my NE is like, all right, what's the vibe we want to create? How do we create a feeling in this room? And then
Oh,
the
that's
S, and
hilarious.
then the SI is like, well, the T is like making the plans of how to do that. And the SI is like, these are the details that will help to create that vibe, right? And pulling all the details together is very satisfying to create that like feeling when you walk into the room. So,
That is so funny because I can't do art to save my life. Like if you ever saw me draw a human, you'd be like, "What is this? Some kind of mutant freak?" But
I'm
I
sure you're not
imagine
that
if
bad, Paul.
you also haven't seen my drawings.
Show us, show us.
Well, I
No,
don't have
don't.
any
You don't have
offhand.
to. You don't have to.
Okay. But I would say that if I were to do anything similar to that, I would definitely think about the practicality first and foremost.
Mm-hmm.
Because, like, a lot of times in my own house, people say, like, it's time to remodel the basement. And I'll be like, the basement's just fine the way it
Yeah.
is. Why do I have to get a better shade of white? Like, it's totally functional if it's just a blank stone wall. Or to give a better example, my best friend, who's an INTJ, moved into my old house. So obviously, I expected there to be a couple of changes here and there because it's his house now. He doesn't want it to be feel like it's trapped in my past. But then he started repainting all of the rooms and he started revolutionizing the patio. And I'm just like, what the heck are you even doing here? And he's like, I'm making it look good. And I'm like, it was totally fine the way it was. He's like, well, I don't want it to be totally fine the way it was. I want it to fit my personality. And it's like, yeah, but it still works just fine when it's ugly. So I
That's great.
think
That's
I
great.
think if I'm understanding correctly, introverted, well, I guess intuition in general is all about like exploring new possibilities. So I think
Mm.
him being stuck in the past like that would just limit him and make him feel stifled. Whereas for me, it just seems like too much work to try to experiment.
Yeah, okay. That when you were saying that, it was reminding me of my father-in-law, who's also an ISTJ. And he, when they bought their house, it has this quite a big yard. And because the maintenance of the yard was going to be like a lot of work that he would have to do, he wanted to just concrete the whole thing so that he didn't have to like mow the lawn or like do all these things. And then
Oh, yeah.
his wife, who's an INFP, was like, what? You are not going to get rid of the nature. Like, no, I want to look at it and like it's beautiful. But he
I
was so
can
like the functional was the most important thing
Oh,
to him.
yeah. I can totally relate to him because I've been saying for so long, like, why don't we just get artificial turf and like never have
Mm.
to worry about cutting the lawn again? And only just now did my parents finally decide we'll pay for someone to mow the lawn. And I said, well, it's about time,
Yeah,
guys.
that's a good way to do it as well. If you want to keep the lawn but have low maintenance, just pay for
Yeah.
someone else to do it.
I think people assume that ISTJs like to get work done, but that's also because ISTJs and ESTJs are often confused for each other at a glance. But usually, what I say is ISTJs, they're hard workers when they have to be,
Mm-hmm.
whereas ESTJs actually get energy from their hard work.
Yeah.
So, for an ISTJ, it's more of their sense of duty talking. For an ESTJ, it's more their sense of extroversion talking.
Yeah, very
So for
interesting.
us, if you want us to work on something, you have to ask, well, Paul, do you want to? Is this something that personally interests you? Or is the ESTJ will just be like, it has to be done, so it's going to be done whether I want to or not. And then they'll end up getting energy from it, and then they'll go out and party. Whereas after I'm all done working, I'll be like, I just want to lay in my bed and just sleep for the next 3 hours.
Yeah, yeah, that's very true. Also, of my father-in-law, I can see a lot of correlations with things that he said as well to what you've just said. Yeah,
So, so I've heard a stereotype. This is going completely off the rails, but I
that's
think you're totally
fine.
okay with that.
Oh, yeah, that's my life.
Yeah. Perfect. So I've heard that ENFPs are the most introverted extroverts, which I can kind of see that because a lot of my friends who are ENFPs do have a more quiet, pensive side to them
Yeah.
that they often laugh through a lot too. It seems like ENFPs and laughter go hand in hand. So I was just curious if you related to that and or have you ever thought of yourself as an introvert? Because nearly every single ENFP I've ever known, except for one, has gotten to their moments where like, oh no, Paul, I think I'm actually an introvert because I'm thinking things through. And I'll be like, congratulations, that's called being healthy.
Yeah, that's called using your T function. Yeah, that's an interesting question because I don't know how to apply that statement like broadly over all ENFPs, and I
Well,
don't
why
know.
don't you just reply it to yourself? Like, have you ever
Yeah,
thought that maybe you're an introvert, or are you
no,
pretty confident?
absolutely not. Only because like I definitely need my time to not be with people. And I don't get energy from people in and of themselves. I actually find it quite draining to be around people when, like, in a social group, when they are talking about things that are very sensory and very like, oh, I bought these shoes. Oh, this person said this thing, or blah blah blah. Basically, I love
All this
people.
behind me.
Oh no, that's not what I mean. But basically, when I guess when I'm around people, in order to feel maximum energy, I need to be talking about some sort of idea or concept or abstract thing. And that happens in most conversations. People are happy to go into like talking about ideas. But sometimes, like maybe one or two times in my life, I've been in a conversation with people where I'm just like, this is completely draining my energy. I have no, like, this is completely sucking the life out of me. But that doesn't happen very often. So I would say, because usually I can find a point of interest or like in most conversations, probably. So because of that, no, I've never thought I was an introvert. It's very apparent to me that I love people. I love being out in the world, not necessarily having sensory experiences, or in the same way that, say, like Kristen and ESFP might be like
Yeah.
out in the world. But I love to be interacting with my external environment a lot. So and for me, that's usually through like art and like manipulating the external environment to make like to make things. Um, and I love
So,
people.
like, oh, my apologies.
No, that's okay. I was just going to say, I love bouncing ideas off of people. So for me, that's like the most energy giving or life giving thing, is when I can sit and chat to someone and bounce ideas off. And I get so much life and energy out of that that I've never doubted that I'm an extrovert. But I do need time to retreat and not see people for a while. And I think that's to do with like, I love researching and reading and that sort of thing. And you don't get to do that in like a social setting. Um,
Yeah.
so I think that's why.
Well, I think I can actually, for once, I think I can actually like 100%, well, maybe more like 97% relate to what you were saying, because I also like interacting with people. I don't know if maybe I like interacting with them as much as you, but like when I interact with people, it gives me reason to doubt constant negative thoughts from dwelling on the past. Because obviously, with introverted sensing, you like almost never forget a major detail. And so sometimes I like get so absorbed in those details that it brings me down. Like I'll be like, oh my
Oh,
gosh,
bummer.
I was a failure once, so I'm always going to be a failure, that kind of thing. And then when I'm around my friends, who pretty much all of them are intuitives, which is really funny because they say sensors dominate the world, but it's like, in my experience, it's the other way around.
Yeah, yeah, that's your known experience with your friendship group. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. So when my friends come along, they're like, well, Paul, have you tried thinking about it like this? And I'm just like, oh, that's an interesting new perspective I never considered.
Yeah, that's great that you can get that perspective from your friends, and like you said, it helps you to feel better about thinking about the things in the past.
Yeah, for sure.
When
But
you're
I would
thinking,
say,
sorry, go on, go on.
my apologies. Um, I would say that when I just lost my train of thought, so I'll just transition.
It happens to you
Yes, we both have extroverted intuition. Probably once I edit this, I'll have like a little graph somewhere on the screen that'll say like our function stack so the audience can see that it's
Yeah,
really just a mirror image.
yeah.
But I was going to say that from my answer to the question of have I ever thought that I was an extrovert? Yes, actually, I did think I was an extrovert before, because I do like being around people and I can be very outgoing and boisterous. And I do when people are happy or when I'm passionate about something, boy, do I get excited. Like when this baby was announced for Smash Brothers, I was jumping up and down. I was running through the house, screaming with enjoyment. No one was in the house that day, which really made me upset. So I just called my brother, not with this phone, and I just said, "Banjos and Smash, Matthew! Come on, be excited with me." He's like, "Yeah, yeah, that's great, Paul." So I needed to be able to have that external processing.
Yeah. Yes.
But
Yeah.
but where I draw the line is that I'm very selective about who I talk to.
Yeah.
And I think that's what probably separates the two of us is that you are probably just like, people, bring it on. Whereas I'm like, good people, moral people, people that aren't too EJ-ish. Let's keep it focused now, shall we?
Yeah. I'm very
So I would
selective.
say,
I am also very selective with who I kind of bounce my ideas off of, but it's not through. It's probably not as deliberate as yours in a sense. In my natural personality, I think because I'm a bit older, in life, I've learned that. So I've learned that I need to be more selective. And also, when you have dominant NE and you chat to people, it's actually very quickly apparent who the people are that are able to kind of ping off you in that way, if that makes sense. So you might start talking, and the reaction you get from a person that you're talking to will tell you within like the first few minutes, usually, if they're going to be the kind of person who's open to hearing or like coping with lots of different ideas, or that kind of like tangential way that any users tend to talk, if that makes sense. So a lot of the time, yeah, so a lot of the time it is like this. You want to kind of bounce things off, but sometimes people are like, yeah, let's talk about that. And other times they're like, oh, cool, and then you're like, all right.
I mean, I wouldn't say I have access to it as readily as you, but I can definitely relate to the other day. Well, I just quit my job, but a few days ago I was at my job at the register at Walgreens. That means the cash register for those
Yep,
of you
yep.
in maybe another country. And I generally would try to listen to the customer's language to see if maybe what I was asking them was something they didn't want to pursue. Like if the person's just like, hello. And I say, would you like to send it back? No. I'm just like, I'm not striking up a conversation with that person because they look like they don't even want to be there.
Fair. So fair that you wouldn't then be like, all right, tell me about your life. Like, back off. I don't want to talk to you. Oh,
I mean, I don't think I'd go that far at the register, but a lot of times I do like to I do like to follow the practices of common courtesy. So even no matter how shy I get, I always want to make sure that like I say hi and I thank the person if they gave me any kind of service. And sometimes it's kept simple. Sometimes my entire conversation with someone will be like, "You have a very nice daughter and I appreciate hearing them or hearing her talk," and then walk away after saying, "Have a nice day." So I think that's a really unfortunate stereotype of thinking types is that they always think that we're mean, but it's not. A lot of times it's because we're trying so hard to be polite that if we are over polite, they might think that we're like a creep or a criminal.
right.
And so
Okay.
that actually brings me up to a question that I wanted to ask my other ENFP friends several years ago. A lot of times ENFPs are known as the unintentional flirters. So I
Oh
was
my
wondering if you
gosh. Oh my gosh. Story of my life. I'm sure every ENFP will relate to this. Like, I'm pretty sure, I don't want to say like every ENFP is like this, but I'm sure this is the thing probably that most ENFPs are like, yes. I think,
yeah, where you see someone and then all of a sudden you're like super excited to see them, and then that person's like, "Are you trying to go out with me or something?" No, no,
this,
I'm just trying to be polite.
this person must be romantically interested in me because they show interest. Yeah, I think this comes down to a bunch of different factors. And if you will let me, I will just talk about this for a little bit.
Oh, bring it on.
Which is,
I love hearing your stories.
so I think the first thing is that obviously ENFPs are very openly friendly because we're extroverted. We have a lot of energy, especially for things that we're passionate about or whatever. We're also extremely interested in people, perspectives, like new ideas, and you get those mostly through people. So you're going to be interested in people a lot. So there's that. And then there's just, I think ENFPs, especially younger ENFPs, and this was definitely true of me when I was younger, have a very like effervescent, bubbly, like intense, happy energy. And it's like a puppy that's always happy to see you kind of energy, I guess, when I think about it.
That sounds
So
so much like my two friends that are
yeah,
married and both ENFPs.
that's lovely. That's lovely. I'm glad you're friends with ENFPs because it's nice. I love that energy in other ENFPs as well. And then so there's that thing. There are those aspects of ENFPs. Then you have the social or societal aspect of kind of people feeling isolated. Genuine connection between strangers is rare. Genuine connection between people is rare. So, and we also have this society that doesn't know what to do with when someone's interested in you. As a like, if someone's interested in you, it's often just kind of perceived as romantic interest because people aren't necessarily aware of what healthy friendships are like and what friendships are about. And that sort of interest is hard to distinguish for people between like romantic interest and friendship interest. And also like, a lot of ENFPs, I was like this when I was younger. And then I had to learn to kind of like temper it a little bit. But I was very like, you'll have a chat, you're having a good time, you just like touch someone on the shoulder, or like we're very touchy feely. And often when you're touchy feely, that's like a flirty thing. But the funny thing about me when I was younger is if I was actually romantically interested in someone, I was the complete opposite of those behaviors. So I don't know if you can apply this broadly to ENFPs, but for me, it was like, if I'm not interested in you romantically, I'm going to be like playful and touchy feely. If I'm interested in you romantically, I'm going to be this like complete like wallflower type, like, what do I do? What do I say? They're looking at me. What do I do? Like, complete opposite of that. So
Yeah.
the flirtatious thing is definitely a thing because of our personalities.
I think for me, it's almost the complete opposite because for ISTJs, we have like a resting face where oftentimes it can look like we're really upset, but that's just how our face naturally contorts. And
Mm-hmm.
so it can come across as though we're completely uninterested in the person. But in reality, we just don't want to do the wrong thing and mess it all up.
Yeah,
Or
interesting.
because our intuition is on the bottom, it just automatically assumes the bad. Like, oh, great. If I have kids, and that means I'll lose sleep. And then that also means I'll have to budget. And that also means I won't be able to have my free time. And that also means I'll have to adjust my schedule. And it's like they're hardly seeing any of the benefits.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Would you say as an ISTJ that you're like that you use your NE a lot? Sorry, I'm just turning down the heater in my car because I'm now getting way too hot. Um, would you say that you use your NE to come up with a lot of those kind of like contingency plan type things? Or like to kind of mitigate the risks that you see? You kind of think of like worst case scenarios for things to kind of plan ahead in a certain way. Does that make sense?
I think you kind of answered my question for me because I do often tell my friends like I always have a plan, but I also always have a backup plan because I'm always expecting there to be a
Mm-hmm.
disaster. And so if my plan goes wrong, then my backup plan will be there to be like, okay, so that didn't go as planned. Let's try this instead. But usually I can only plan one or two things because my intuition is so weak. And so if plan B fails, then I just stand there and act like an idiot. And in fact, while I was at my job, I ran into an unknown situation. And with the customers there and all, I just said, I don't know what to do. I'm completely at a loss. I have no idea how to resolve this. And it sounds so silly, but I think we ISTJs are selective planners. Like, I think a lot of people get the impression that we have everything mapped out and our lives are perfectly organized. You're thinking of the INTJs, guys. The ISTJs, on the other hand, have to say, well, let me look at this calendar. It's got dogs on it. I figured that's an
Cute.
ENFP thing. okay, 2 weeks from now, that's our plan.
Yeah.
But if you were to ask, like, so where do you see yourself in 5 years? I'm like, I don't even know what I'm seeing myself as in 5 days.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
And I, but do you think that's, sorry.
we have plans for the immediate future, but not for the far off distant future like you guys
Yeah,
do.
yeah, right. Well, I see, I have like vague visions. I wouldn't say they're plans. I have vague visions for the future of what I want to happen. And then I kind of have plans closer to the time that I am currently living in. But I was going to ask you about your about this thing of ISTJs kind of living in the past in a certain way. I guess thinking like being preoccupied maybe with the past a lot. Would you say
Mm-hmm.
that your plans, like when you are using your intuition to kind of come up with plans and ideas, it's largely based on things you've encountered before, like experiences that you've had before, using that as information or like a foundation or a basis to then come up with a plan of how to approach the future?
Yeah, again, you keep answering my questions for me because not only do I base a lot of things off of the past, but I like literally live it. And the best way I can describe it is if you've ever tried to watch two movies at once on two separate screens, and sometimes your mind can't tell the difference because you're trying so hard to focus on both that say you're watching both Aladdin and The Lion King at the same time. You might be, say, hearing a whole new world at the same time as
A
you're
whole
watching
new
Mufasa.
world.
Yeah. And then you're watching Mufasa die. So all of a sudden, you can't stop thinking about a whole new world. So, an example of that in real life that's a bit more tangible would be I'm talking to, say, a new person, and I'm trying so hard to hit it off. And let's just hypothetically say I was flirting with this girl. So, I'm talking to this girl, and I'm having so much fun. And then all of a sudden, she says something like, let's say that she says, oh, sorry for the noise in the background, Paul. My dad just slammed the door. I'll be like, oh no, don't tell me you're a door slammer too. She's like, wait, what? I didn't even say that. I'll be like, oh shoot, I'm so used to girls door slamming me that when you said door slam, it reminded me of that time in the past, and therefore that got me to panic, even though there was no immediate grounds to make that assumption.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
So
That's
it
like
leads to me
so foreign to me.
constantly, it leads to me constantly comparing people, and I know that intuitive types don't really like that. So I guess that segues really well into the next question. And if we're running out of time, please stop me because I know sometimes you guys can get excited when we get on tangents. But because I interviewed Kristen first, naturally almost all of my audience is going to be like, okay, well, you're the second Kristen. So I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about not only how the one letter difference differentiates you, but also like how do you want to see yourself as being a separate entity that's like, no, I am not just Kristen 2.0. I am Jenna, and that is how I am going to be. You're going to stand out just like the guy in my shirt.
Yay! The guy going,
I
yay.
actually, I was going to change this shirt before our meeting, but I kept it on because I thought ENFP is like standing out. This will make
That's
sense.
great. Well, I don't know. I don't yeah, standing out. Um I don't know that I do like standing out, but maybe in certain ways. I don't know. I don't really have like I'm very happy to live a quiet ordinary life. And to be just myself in my immediate surroundings with my family, just doing my thing. So I don't know. And people are going to think, like, people think what they're going to think, you know? So I don't know. I don't know how I would. Obviously, I'm a different personality type from an ESFP, and obviously, I'm a different person from my sister. So if people want to think we're the same, then that's clearly wrong. So
Yeah.
if anyone's interested that's watching this, if anyone's interested who is watching this, there's a video that Kristen did with me where we talked all about our differences between the two of us. So they could just watch there. Her channel is Dear Kristen, if you don't know it,
Oh,
YouTube
good. You
people.
plugged it.
I did. I
Plugged
had
it before
to.
I did.
I had to.
I actually did watch part one of that, and the part that struck me the most is when when Kristen mentioned her SEing out, where you
Oh
were
yeah.
talking about
Oh
all this
yeah.
analytical stuff, and Kristen's just like looking so tired. And at that exact point, I just said, Kristen, I know your pain because I was literally thinking the same thing the whole
I
time.
feel you.
But I think with
Yeah.
Kristen, she has it even harder because she has extroverted sensing. And so
Mm-hmm.
that means it has to be in the real world. Whereas for me, yes, I'm a realist. Yes, I never miss a detail, but I'm always going to be contrasting it with past details. Whereas Kristen doesn't really do that. She's like totally in the moment. I am half in the moment, the other 30% or the other 75% in the past. That is terrible grammar, but it's supposed to be terrible because it's a confusing function for you.
Great. Love that. Yeah, so I don't know. I can't speak for what Kristen is doing or how her functions work or whatever. But yeah, no, there definitely is that difference of the dominant functions. Even though we're both extroverted, and we touch on this in the video as well. Even though we're both extroverted, we're very clearly both extroverted, and we have similar mannerisms and that sort of thing. Yeah, the top two functions is probably the biggest difference where she loves to go out with her. She's dominant SE, and she likes to go out and have experiences in the real world. And like the more she once said to me, she was like, the more sensory input, the better. And I was like, oh my gosh, like any like music, like wind, like someone shouting, someone's like dancing over there, like all these sensory things are going on. And she's like, yes, this is the best. Yeah, which is great. I mean, what a fun time. I can imagine having dominant SE and being in a situation where you feel like you're really in your element. You'd just feel unstoppable. You'd feel amazing. Like that must be so cool. Um, Whereas I'm very much not in the sensory world that often. I've had to train myself to be um, more, yeah, more present in the sensory world. But for me, the similar thing to that would be if I'm sitting in a room full of people, or we don't have to be sitting. We could be doing anything. What we're doing is not the point. We could just be chatting, like three different people, probably two or three people, and just having a purely like hypothetical discussion about anything is just like really fun. That's like I'm in my element when I'm bouncing ideas off of other people and hearing their ideas and taking those on and then like spinning them out in a different way. And like everyone's kind of doing that. That's like, I love that.
So you would really like Smash Brothers speculation then, assuming you're a video game fan.
I have not played a video game since it's been a while. We grew up in a really gaming centric sort of household. We've got two brothers who are very, very heavily into video games, and then I think like I think Kristen and I kind of played video games because they were into it, and then we got into it a lot. And then I think Kristen still plays some video games, probably more than I do. I definitely don't have much time for hobbies in general, so video games are pretty low on my hobbies priority. Although I did play, I did play Stardew Valley for like 3 days straight, and like neglected all of my household tasks because it was so addictive. And then my
Oh, that's
husband,
funny.
my husband was like, "This game has got to go." And I was like, "Look, it's been 3 days. I've pretty much finished the game by now, so I'm happy to just like let that sit to the side." But since
Yeah.
since Stardew Valley, I haven't really played anything for a while, and that was a number of years ago. So yeah,
Yeah, when I bring up Smash speculation, and just so you know, we gotta be watching the time a bit, because I think we went
yeah,
1 minute over what you said.
we're okay because when I went back inside, we could extend it to probably 10:30, which isn't in about half an hour's time. So
Oh, well, that's
yeah,
great. Yeah,
so we've
I'm
got another
totally up
half
for that.
hour. Yeah,
I'm actually not going to edit this out because I think that's a good segue into a point that is often made about ENFPs, and that's that they hate being on a deadline, they hate being timed, and they hate being restricted. Would you say that that applies to you, or have you learned the value of timekeeping and time management?
it entirely depends on context, like most things. So if you're talking about like in a workplace scenario, being like micromanaged is the bane of life. That's like the worst thing you could do to an ENFP, is like be over our shoulder being like, these procedures, this deadline that's coming, this thing, do it in this exact way, no innovation here. That sort of thing is the worst.
That is
But
so funny
in
because I
terms,
would.
you love that? Are you going to say
I
that's my
love
bread and
it.
butter? Yeah.
Yes, because when I'm at work, if my boss says do it, I will say, okay, how do you want me to do it?
You're
And then
the
if he has,
ideal, like, you're the ideal employee then, probably for most people.
and then if my boss doesn't tell me enough information, I'll have to interrupt him and say, I'm sorry, but I don't understand what you just said. Can you please give me exact details on exactly how you want me to complete the task? So hearing you say that that's stifling is just like, I wouldn't even know where to start if my boss just said, just do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Like sometimes if I would get done with a job early and I'd say, what else do you want me to do? They'd be like, find work to do. And I'd be like, huh? Just tell me what work to do.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So in a workplace context, I think that's definitely true of ENFPs. In a like family context, or in a just life, just personal life, or just doing life outside of work, I guess, or hobbies or something, I'm very plans oriented and very well. In a workplace I am too, but it might just not be the way that the person higher up would. I work best in like a workplace scenario if someone's like, this is the outcome that I want, achieve that outcome for me. And I'm like, great, I can do that. I can get to that outcome for you. That's fine. But if it's like every step of the way has to be done this way, this way, this way, this way, then it's not great for me. But in my life, I think I'm very, very, like, I like to get things done in a certain way, and I like to get them done as time effectively as possible. And I am very good at managing the slices of my time. Like my time management skills are quite good, compared to, not quite good generally compared to like an ISTJ, but quite good compared to how they used to be when I was younger. So they're probably still not great compared to like someone who's actually uses those kind of functions in their dominant slots.
Yeah.
But I do see the value in, and really value, um, managing my time, because I find that, and again, I think it's to do with getting married and having kids, because you can't just do things when you want to do them anymore, because that has ripple effects and affects everyone in kind of a negative way if you do that. So I'm very I prefer to, I'm very careful to manage my time in a way that's going to work best for everyone in the house, I guess.
So I would imagine that that's a result of developing your tertiary function, which is the
Mm,
extroverted thinking, which
yeah.
obviously for me comes second nature, but you had to adjust to the idea of structuring everything and being a pragmatist. But that's a
Well,
stereotypical question. I want to take this in a bold new direction because I know
oh,
you love
okay. Bring it on.
and and I want to bring up how we both have extroverted thinking. So that means that unlike the introverted thinkers, we're always going to be thinking about stuff that's pragmatic and doable.
Mm-hmm.
Like
What
I
works?
use
Things that
I
work in the
use
external world.
yes, exactly. I used this to explain it to my INTJ best friend because he's an architectural engineer. He designs like air ducts and the structure of a building. And I'll
Awesome.
say, yeah, I know. Um, he's a bit scatterbrained, so there's his little weakness there, but he's a mastermind when it comes to
Love
designing
it.
rooms. So obviously, when he designs the air ducts, his extroverted thinking is going to say, I'm not just going to keep this in my head. I'm going to see how I can actually put them in the real world. So, like, how does your extroverted thinking lead to you being more of a realist as opposed to, say, an introverted thinker that's okay with just thinking about something and never making it happen?
Okay, so I don't know that I agree with that introverted thinking about things and not making them happen. Maybe in a general sense. And speaking from experience, because I'm married to an INTP who is dominant introverted thinking. And probably most of our conflicts, when we have them, come from the TITE difference. So that's what you've said is kind of rings true there. But he is very good. He's a very like balanced, integrated, amazing human being. And he's very good at making stuff happen that he thinks of. And or like, I think as a team, we're very good at making it happen as well, because he might not necessarily know like the first or second step to take, and I'll be a bit better at doing that. But then he's very good at kind of building on top of that and seeing where it's going and kind of, and he actually gets a lot of stuff done around the house better than me in some ways. But that's like, that's like in the immediate environment. In terms of like, no, you know what? He's really good. He's actually really good at executing his plans. Like he'll think of something and be like, this is worth doing. Here's how I'm going to approach it. Here's how I'm going to do it. So he's actually, maybe that's unusual for INTP. I don't know, but he's good at that.
I think that actually makes sense. And perhaps that's a better way of wording the difference, is that introverted thinkers like to integrate their plans on their own terms, whereas extroverted thinkers, I guess you could say, are more okay with being pushed around if it's in the dominant.
Well, maybe. I think, Paul, if I may, what I've observed just in the context of my relationship with an INTP is that the main difference, and where we butt heads the most, is the rapidity of it. So, for example, my TE always wants to act quickly. He wants to sit and think about a plan for a while and really make sure he has all the information before he acts on something. When he does act, it's very deliberate and it often goes very well because he spent so much time thinking about it. When I act, it goes well because I have a sense of what's going to work and it's quicker. Like my sense of what's going to work just happens and I just act quickly. So I don't know if that's maybe that's like an NETE kind of combo thing, or if it's TE specifically. But I also like to I think the main difference is just in how quickly we think through things and act on things. So for me, I'm like, I don't need to think through all the minutiae of something if I have a general idea of how it works. Because I'm confident about my general idea being correct and going with that. And it often is correct for me in the circumstances where it is correct. It's not like always correct out in the world. But
I can relate to that a little bit too, because oftentimes when my other friends are overthinking everything, I'll be like, try this.
Yeah.
And it just comes to me like instantly because I have such a good grasp on the familiar.
Yeah.
That like anytime I see a problem, my brain can just like pull out the right file and say, here's the solution.
Yeah, that's so interesting because I relate a lot to that. I think I'm very similar in the sense of like, I don't spend a lot of time thinking about the past, but when I need to access it, it's very quick. Like I can draw on a past experience, probably not in as much detail as you could, Paul, but like I can draw on a past experience and like the vibe or the feeling of it or how it went and if it worked in some general sense. And then I can take that information and apply it to the current situation, fairly confident that it will work. And then I'll figure out the details as I go along.
And then that's not to say I don't think about vibes, but I generally do prioritize a lot of the nitty-gritty details. Like right now, as we were talking, I was envisioning the exact spot when I was at a conference where a bunch of girls got me out of depression. And I'm visualizing what the bench looked like because they made like a sort of monument there. I don't think they meant it as actually a monument, but like they
but
put
in
a
your
bench.
Mind, it was immortalized as a monument.
Yes, because when I first met them, they were sitting on the floor. But then when I went to the conference the following year, there was a bench there, and I thought, what a great way to like honor the spot where it happened. So in my head, I'm like, I'm doing a 360 imaging of like, what did I see? What was the floor like? What was the railing over here? How much proximity was it from there to the escalators? And that's probably boring you silly, but
no, that's fascinating. And I also think that's quite beautiful, actually, that you can remember.
Really?
Yeah, that you can remember, with that specific example, with just something as ordinary as a bench being put in a spot and you can attribute that meaning to it. That's really beautiful.
Oh, thank you. Most intuitives are just like, yeah, I fell asleep after the other word.
Oh, I think that's lovely because then yeah, that's nice. You can always remember where that happened for you and what that felt like and the impact
Yeah.
that had on your life.
And then when I did go to the conference that following year and I saw people on the escalator, and like as I'm pointing, I'm not just pointing in random spaces. I'm like literally pointing in the direction I would if I was standing there. So this isn't just a random arm press. It's like literally hitting the escalator in my mind. So as I'm looking at the escalator, I'm saying, guys, I gotta show you something cool. This is where it happened. This is the exact seat. And they're just like, wow, I'm glad that you can remember where it happened.
Yeah, yeah,
But I also think that that's a common component of the faith, is that when you have an encounter with the Lord, you don't forget it very easily, no matter what personality
yeah,
type you
yep,
are.
yep.
So I
I
guess
would say
in
that's
that
true.
respect, I was curious if there's been an event in your life where maybe because you encountered the Lord, you came across as more of an ISTJ because you wouldn't forget the details because it's miraculous.
Um, yeah, yeah. I don't know if in those moments I'd come across as an ISTJ, but maybe I'm wrong. But I do remember. Well, I can relate to what you were saying just then about like it's almost like this visual, like imaginary, but like very visual picture you have around you of what the environment looks like. I totally relate to that. Like I point also in directions, imagining that I'm situated in that place and I can see what it's like around me. And I'm also not pointing in random directions or looking in random directions. I can see the ideas that I'm trying to grab and I'm looking in the directions of them. Maybe it's more abstract than your thing, actually, now that I think about it and talk it. But anyway, back to your question. Yes, I definitely have had, like, I've had my gosh, a lot of miraculous sort of encounters. And I definitely can remember those with a lot of clarity. So those kind of stand out, I guess, in my memories where I don't just remember the vibes, but I can remember all the details and the circumstances of what was happening, which tends to happen when you encounter something that's like very obviously supernatural, or like grace abounding and like God intervening directly into the tangible world. You're like, wait, this doesn't make sense. Why has that happened? You remember, so you remember all the sensory information that shouldn't have happened in a certain way and did, so it's, yeah, I definitely can relate to that.
Well, I think for me, I think for me, like I actually have had a Eucharistic miracle happen to me. And
Amazing.
I have a video of it on my YouTube channel if you're interested. I think it's
Cool.
just called My Eucharistic Miracle or
I'll
something
have
like
to
that.
check
So
it
nice
out.
and easy to remember. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Very
And
straight to the
if I
point.
were and if I were to go back to the building where it happened, I would be able to walk into the room and I'd look around and I'd say, right there, that's where it happened. And it's just, it's just an open gym. It doesn't have any
Yeah.
landmarks or anything that would set it apart, but I'd be able to say it was this patch of floor right here. This is where I was kneeling. There's where I was kneeling before I hobbled over to the monstrance. And there's where the leader was sitting, the one that I talked to say, I think I've been healed. Take me to the nurse. And I would even be able to like retrace my steps back to the nurse's office. And I think a lot of people are jealous of that ability of an ISTJs that we can like relive something so vividly, but
Mm.
it's also kind of a curse at the same time because we do the exact same thing with the worst memories of our life.
I was going to say that sounds a lot like, I mean, you could see where people of any personality that would happen with trauma, like traumatic situations. Probably everyone would remember, and then like you have your coping mechanisms of trying to repress and forget, but your body remembers things that are traumatic. Um, but for and also, yeah, like the things that are really good. I don't know. Like I said, I can relate to what you were saying about like remembering the beautiful things very vividly. And I think maybe a lot of people could do that, but maybe the difference with ISTJs is like every experience you have is probably experience like remembered with the same sort of like vivid imagery, or you can very clearly remember details of like everything that's happened to you in the
Yeah,
past.
but that also means we're more susceptible to things like PTSD, anxiety, and depression
Oh, so
because
rough.
Yeah, because there are times where like I'll go into a building where a traumatic experience happened and I'll refuse to sit in a certain chair because I'll say like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's the chair where it happened.
Oh, I'm sorry that that's the case for you. That sucks. That's really rough.
Well, at least I've gotten better over the years.
Yeah, I mean, that's good too.
I've gotten
Um,
to the point where I'll talk to INFJs again, which is something I
oof,
didn't think I would say because, oh man, those guys are like the ultimate betrayers unless they're really healthy.
oh my gosh. Okay, so you've clearly had bad experiences with ISTJs. I mean ISFJs. That
INFJ,
INFJs.
NFJs,
Sorry,
yes.
INFJs. INFJs. So that sucks. That sucks. I know only lovely INFJs. So if that does anything for you, just have that information. The ones I
Well, I
know.
do have an INFJ that's probably going to be watching this, and I just want her to know if you're watching this, I do not think you're one of those unhealthy
You're
types.
not evil. You're cool. We're cool.
Yes,
That's
yes,
good.
she's totally cool. But I would say that like sometimes type association can be a source of remembrance as well. Because like
Mm,
if
mm.
someone hurts me, I'll also remember what type they are, and then that'll make me be on my guard around
Yeah,
someone else
okay.
that type. So
Yeah,
like
okay.
whenever I'm around ENTJs, it's like pretty automatic for me to like get in my like judo fighting stance. I'm not actually a fighter in real life, but like I have that defensive instinct. And so
Mm,
sometimes I'll like get in the body positions ready to like be okay, if you're going to just hit me with all that extroverted judging, I'm not just going to sit back and take it.
interesting.
And that's where I think the biggest difference between ISTJ and ISFJ comes in is ISTJs are usually able to stand up for themselves pretty well and assert like, no, this is a boundary, don't you cross it. Whereas the ISFJs will sometimes stay quiet to preserve the harmony. And I mean, I've done that every now and then, but I think it's more natural for me to just be blunt and say it like it is.
That's very interesting. I know two ISFJs I know have come to mind when you've said that, and they are very good at yeah, I guess it's my brain is automatically like on guard about making judgments across every single type. Sorry, about people of every single type, because you can always think of and know the exceptions, but then it's hard to know if those exceptions that you think of are exceptions, or if we just need to understand the types a bit better. Because I think like I worked with an ISFJ, and then there's another ISFJ who's like a really really close inner circle kind of friend of mine, and I would say they're both very good with boundaries. Like they're both good at being firm about things, but the way that they go about it is probably very different from an ISTJ, because I think again of my father-in-law who's very good at putting boundaries. The most gentle, kind, beautiful man. But he is firm in his own gentle, like loving way. But it's still very different to the way that my ISFJs that I'm thinking of would be gentle but firm. Like there's a lot more. Yeah, yeah. I think there's a lot more of um, that FE there, I think, in
You know,
the
that kind of reminds me of something that I've been hearing a lot. And just as a heads up, we have about 9 minutes left. So we might want to make this the last question slash observation. But a lot of people have said that dominant introverted sensors have a gentle way about them that's really unexpected, to which I was like, oh,
yes,
I never noticed
yes.
that before. But that's like ISTJs, we don't really like being loud or confrontational or rude. In fact, if you were to say, like, Paul, that hurt my feelings, I would be very hurt. But I think the difference between me and an ISFJ is they'd say, oh no, that's terrible that your feelings are hurt. What can I do? I would say that, but then even more so, I'd be saying to myself, ah, gosh, I got to get better at this. So I would be doing the self blaming, and they would just get straight to the person and help them.
Mm,
So
yeah, interesting.
I was curious if people have ever, because you also use introverted sensing, have people ever seen you as like a gentle, quiet soul, especially compared to Kristen, who uses extroverted sensing?
A gentle, quiet soul. Ooh, probably, maybe. I've had people say to me that that I have a gentle manner and like a gentle, at certain times, probably in my more introspective times, because I don't know if I have a gentle, quiet soul in most of my interactions with the outside world. I'm like, hey, it's not very gentle and quiet. But I think maybe my attitude, maybe I have like a gentle attitude, because I do try to kind of like, I don't know. Yeah, I'm definitely not a T. I mean, not that T's aren't gentle. My husband's very gentle and he's like a dominant T. And he's very like gentle is one of the words I would like single out to describe him. But yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. Gentle, yeah, I don't know. You'd have to ask people who know me, which you won't be able to do. So I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question.
I guess
But
the closest I can think of would be asking Christian, which reminds me, make sure to remind her that either I sent her an email or just say, send Paul a new email. He's been waiting.
Kristen, if you're watching this, you heard it here. I was going to
that's
say
probably the best way because of the external stimuli.
I was going to say, I guess to answer that question just now, would you, if you look at your ENFP friends, would you describe them as like gentle and quiet in any way?
I would say they're definitely quiet compared to ESFPs because I have an ESFP friend who's extremely boisterous and she gives like bone cracking hugs and she's always very loud and obnoxious in a good way.
Yeah, sure.
And it can be a little bit tiring. Whereas my ENFP friends, I mean, yes, they're also very loud, but they're loud more of in the sense that their joy is contagious. They might give like a more like a gentle hug. They might be more of like, yeah, whatever is good for you, as opposed to the ESFP where it's like, dude, I am loving this. Whereas the ENFP will be more like, I'm just having so much fun and I'm so happy. So you see how there's like a gentle serenity versus the, oh, I'm in the moment.
Sure. Yeah, okay.
So I've definitely noticed that. And then I've also noticed even in my INFJ friend who has inferior extroverted sensing, like she will get so excited in the moment and she'll be loving it so much. And she'll be like, Paul, don't compare it with anything. Just let me love this right now. And then like when she sees me, she'll get this gigantic grin on her face that I can't even do because I'm too much of an introverted feeler that my jaws just won't go up that high. She's just like, oh my gosh, Paul, I'm seeing you right now and it's so exciting. Whereas my ENFP friends, I mean, they kind of do that, but it's a little bit more of, how do I word this? Like you said, the difference between like a dog versus a like motorcycle gang leader.
Motorcycle gang leader.
Because like whenever you envision the stereotypical ESFP, ESTP, you imagine like those motorcycle jockeys that take off the sunglasses and are like,
so
yo, you want to ride? If not, totally. I'm going to go and body slam the next guy that comes into me later, bro. That's how we talk around here. Maybe biker guys are different in Australia.
I just love that it was puppy motorcycle gang leader. It's just like so different. Yeah, okay. It's okay. What I'm getting from this is it sounds like you have a beautiful group of friends. So good job, Paul's friends.
Thank
you. Lovely personalities you all have. Not that I wouldn't say that about someone. I think all the personalities are great. Yeah, that's funny. That's very interesting. I wonder if it would have anything to do with like the gentleness quality with like the for ENFPs, I mean, with the no, maybe not. That's not a very well-formed theory, as I have just said it out loud for the first time just now. It's okay. We'll leave that one. I'll think
more about
that.
We're extroverted thinkers. We think while we talk, after all.
Yes, and that's very true. My Annie keeps throwing ideas, and then I'm like, let me say that. Wait, no, that's not a one to explore now. That needs more thought.
Yes. Well, speaking of exploring, we should probably schedule a part 2 because I imagine there are plenty of questions neither of us have asked the other.
Yeah. Well, it's
because I definitely don't want to. I definitely don't want to get in the way of whatever you have to do. So what I like to do whenever I interview someone is I usually like them to this is their opportunity to either plug their own stuff or try to think if they can come up with a catchy catchphrase. So like whenever I end one of my videos, I say, keep the faith, stay epic, God bless, and then I do an on the spot joke that's related to this topic of the video. So if you have any of that stuff, you can mention that to the audience at this point.
Well, audience, like I've mentioned before, keep the faith, stay whatever. Keep the faith, though. We love the faith. Keep the faith. Check out Dear Kristen's channel, because that's Kristen, my sister, as we've spoken about her before. And then also I have a YouTube channel. It's just kind of in the starting phases of the moment, but it's going to be non-Myers-Briggs related, but it's just like DIY projects, like crafting, home renovation things, whatever else I feel like doing creatively. So if you're interested in that, follow along. If not, go about your merry way and enjoy your life.
Well, audience, thank you very much for watching. I hope you got something out of this, and stay tuned for part 2, because boy, is there a lot of questions I didn't get to.
Sorry. Sorry,
Not a
not
problem.
sorry. Story of my life. All right.
Dual intuition, gotta love it. So
Yeah.
have a great day, everyone. Bye.
Bye.